It's Monday, April 12th, and this is now on HNN. Breaking news, Knoxville, Tennessee police say multiple agencies are on scene of a school shooting. Breaking details just ahead.
Due to the building emergency, we continue to ask everyone to remain in their hotel rooms with their doors locked and off of their balconies.
Authorities continue to investigate an hours-long standoff that forced the Kahala Hotel into lockdown.
To tell everyone to get away from the windows and move into the ballroom.
Vaccine delivery set a new record this weekend. I'm Natalie Brand in Washington with why the administration says it will not surge doses to states seeing a sharp rise in cases.
Plus an update on Honolulu Police Chief Susan Ballard's decision to step down.
The commission was really looking forward to working with the chief on the performance improvement plan.
These stories and more coming up on This Is Now.
We begin with that breaking news. The Knoxville Police Department said one person was killed today in a shooting at a Tennessee high school. Police have confirmed multiple gunshot victims, including a Knoxville police officer at Austin East Magnet High School. Officers responded to the school on the report of a man who was possibly armed inside the school. As officers approached that suspect, shots were fired according to police. The officer was shot at least one time and transported to the UT Medical Center with injuries that are said not to be life-threatening. One male was pronounced dead at the scene, while another was detained for further investigation. There are no other known gunshot victims at this time. Again, that's according to police. We're still awaiting a lot more details on this story. As soon as we get more information, we'll be sure to pass it along to you on our later editions of Hawaii News Now and our HNN digital platforms.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for watching. This is Now. Ashley and Jonathan here. We just got those coronavirus numbers from the State Department of Health. The state is reporting 70 new cases today and no new fatalities. The breakdown by island shows 5 cases on the Big Island, 15 on Maui, 48 on Oahu, and 2 residents were diagnosed out of state. Now, the Biden administration says vaccine rollout plans are accelerating, but officials say they will not change how they distribute the doses to states, and this comes as some states are seeing a rise in cases. Natalie Brand starts her coverage from the White House.
The U.S. set a new one-day record for vaccine shots delivered this weekend. Andy Slavitt, the White House's senior COVID response advisor, tweeted 4.6 million doses were administered Saturday alone.
We're administering shots at a record pace, and we're adding millions more each week.
Michigan, which is seeing the country's biggest surge in new cases, is asking for more vaccines to be diverted to the state.
What's happening in Michigan today could be what's happening in other states tomorrow. And so it's on all of us to recognize if we can squash where we're seeing hot spots, it's in everyone's best interest.
But the Biden administration says it will not surge doses to state hotspots.
The answer to that is to really close things down, to go back to our basics, to go back to where we were last spring, last summer, and to shut things down, to flatten the curve, to decrease contact with one another.
The CDC says the rise in cases in the upper Midwest can be traced to the variant first detected in the UK and is being spread more easily among school-aged children, especially those taking part in sports. Michigan's governor is calling for a 2-week pause in youth sports and in-person learning in high schools.
We are encouraging schools to move forward, to take a pause right now, and to promulgate policies to keep their students and their staff safe.
The FDA says it's evaluating a new request by Pfizer to expand emergency use authorization of its COVID vaccine to young people ages 12 to 15. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
Starting today, Oahu residents 15 and older can schedule an appointment to get vaccinated. As the state opens up eligibility, it may be harder to get a shot. That's because supply is actually decreasing. Hawaii officials say Hawaii is getting 85% fewer doses of Johnson & Johnson's vaccine this week, and supply for Pfizer and Moderna is also not expected to go up. The health department says to check out your local pharmacy for appointments. The federal government gives pharmacies their own supply of doses that's separate from the State Department of Health. In other news, Honolulu Police Chief Susan Ballard announced she will be stepping down effective June 1st. Here is some of what she had to say in a video message posted online.
On June 1, I will be retiring and stepping down as the chief of the Honolulu Police Department. For the past 36 years, it has been my privilege to serve alongside the outstanding women and men who are the heart and soul of HPD. I thank them for their service and will always be proud to have served as their chief. Mahalo to the community for its continued support of the Honolulu Police Department at a time when police departments across the country are faced with increasing challenges. HPD is truly fortunate to serve and protect a community that cares for its officers as much as we care for you.
So for more on this, we're joined again by Lynn Kawano, our chief investigative reporter. Hey Lynn, so was this expected? You've been reporting on this for weeks. What are officials telling you, those in the law enforcement community? And I just wanted to get your take. Was this a surprise?
I think when it came down Friday, it was a surprise. My phone just started blowing up. I was out on another story, and it was about 3:45, and that's when the news was spreading throughout the department. I think people were surprised at the timing of it. I do think people expected her at some point to retire, possibly ahead of the end of her term, which would have been the end of next year. But I don't think they expected it this soon, and certainly not right after the police commission's review. You know, I was somewhat disappointed. I think the police commission was also that Chief Ballard didn't give them the 60 days to try to improve things or work on some of these some of these little things that she needed to fix on. And she got good scores on 5 out of the 7. So it was just these 2 that seemed to give her those low marks. And the police commission seemed to really want to work with her to improve those marks.
All right, so what was the tipping point then? What made her throw in the towel?
You know, Chief Ballard didn't take questions. She didn't have a press conference yet about this. She made the announcement on a video, and because we didn't get to ask her the questions, we don't really know what the tipping point was. I mean, obviously 2 days after this review, and the next day, you know, a lot of people were asking, we were asking for interviews with her on what her plans were and what she was going to do. So we're hoping that this week she does talk to us. We also want her to explain. She said she didn't feel like she had the commission support anymore, or the mayor's support. Both of those bodies say that's actually not true. The mayor says that he was fully supportive of her. The police commission says they were supportive of her and wanted her to make these improvements in the next 60 days. So we want to ask Chief Ballard what gave her that impression, or what was the reasoning behind what she said?
Even with her stepping down, a lot of the issues the department's facing aren't going away. Those CARE Act funding investigations, other things about overtime, those problems are still going to be investigated and looked at, right?
Absolutely they are. They're not going to go away because the chief goes away. I do think that perhaps it would take a different approach, right? Because the feds are now looking into the CARES Act spending, and she says that they have turned things around. They've turned all the information over to the feds. So maybe there's, you know, a little bit more of a questioning, a little bit more freedom in asking Chief Ballard after she's gone about it, or just moving forward with whoever becomes the new chief. And who knows, this new chief process could take a very long time. The search could take a long time. So the feds may have to depend on Chief Ballard for this investigation, as well as some of the other issues.
Let's talk more about the search for that next new chief of HPD. What's going on there?
Yeah, it could take months. I mean, I expect, especially with COVID, it's going to take a long time. And Commission Chair Shannon Olivado spoke on Sunrise this morning. Here's what she had to say about that.
What we need to do first is name an interim chief to ensure that the transition is not only smooth, but that the City and County of Honolulu is in the right hands while we look for the next chief. The next steps include looking, and I'm talking from previous searches for chiefs, but what has happened in the past is that we would go out for an RFP and actually select a search firm and go through the arduous process of finding the most qualified candidate to be considered for the next chief of police.
In the meantime, we do need an interim, as she said. So June 1st is Chief Ballard's last day. Most of the time, history shows that the number 2 in charge, which in this case would be Deputy Chief John McCarthy, would take over. He has 44 years of experience. So it's not like he doesn't know the department inside and out. Whether or not that's what the police commission decides, we don't know because they haven't made the announcement yet. But as of right now, Chief Ballard is still the chief. I know she's in today at the office. People will say, is she going to be a lame duck chief? I don't know. She's in the office today. So we shall see what happens in the next few weeks, who's going to take over and how this transition goes.
All right, Lynn Kawana, let's toss it back over to Ashley.
The Kahala Hotel had to lock down during an armed standoff on Saturday. Sammy Selena has the latest on the investigation.
There were definitely some tough moments Saturday night at the hotel, and including in surrounding areas like the beach, like the eateries, when folks were told that they were in danger and they needed to get out of the area or go inside. Eventually, this all ended around 3:30 a.m. Sunday morning after officials said that 40-year-old suspect died of self-inflicted gunshot wounds. We don't know a whole lot about this man or the events that led up to this, but here is what we do know. Sources tell us his wife notified hotel security that her husband was suicidal around 5:30 Saturday afternoon. A security guard went up to check on the man and he fired shots through the door. That happened around 6 p.m. Luckily, no one was injured. His identity has not been released yet, but officials did say the man was a member of the Navy assigned to the Pacific Submarine Force. The suspect's military commander reportedly responded to the scene, where members of his family were also assisting police. We're not sure why he was at this hotel. People normally barricade themselves in their homes in situations like this, so it was pretty rare for this to happen here. We know that about 100 folks who were staying in the ballroom were eventually allowed to return to their rooms, but we're unsure of the status of the 4th floor and the man's room. We do know that rooms near the scene were evacuated. Guests on other floors were told to shelter in place. For those at the hotel, it wasn't immediately clear what was happening.
To tell everyone to get away from the windows and move into the ballroom, and they were just trying to get people as calm as possible, and they were moving them in from the beach and from the restaurant, wherever they were, into the ballroom.
The Kahala Hotel and Resort said business has returned to normal operations. Sammy Solina for This Is Now.
Protesters clashed with police last night in Minnesota after the death of a young man following a traffic stop. It happened just 10 miles from the site of Derek Chauvin's murder trial. Jamie Yukas has more.
Body cam footage reveals a Brooklyn Center police officer yells "taser" multiple times before firing her handgun and fatally shooting 20-year-old Dante Wright. Chief Tim Gannon told reporters he believes the officer, described as very senior, intended to deploy her taser.
This appears to me, from what I've viewed and the officer's reaction and distress immediately after, that this was an accidental discharge that resulted in the tragic death of Mr. Wright.
Police say Wright was pulled over for an expired registration. Officers then determined there was an outstanding arrest warrant and tried to arrest him. Wright is seen getting back into his car, and then the officer fires. The car traveled several blocks before hitting another vehicle.
He didn't deserve to be shot and killed like this.
The incident occurred just 10 miles from where the murder trial of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin is underway.
We are in pain right now. And we recognize that this couldn't have happened at a worse time.
The shooting sparked violent protests overnight and clashes with police. The chief defended the use of flashbangs and tear gas to try to break up the group.
We had to disperse the crowd because we can't allow our officers to be harmed.
An investigation into the officer is underway, and she's on administrative leave.
I think we can look at the video and ascertain whether or not she'll be returning.
The department is bracing for more protests tonight. Jamie Yukas, CBS News, Brooklyn Center, Minnesota.
Lieutenant Governor Josh Green says the state hopes to roll out a vaccine passport pilot program in the coming weeks. Here's what he had to say about it.
We've solved the political problem, which is, are we willing to do it? I've spoken with each of the mayors. They are on board, and some of the devil will be in the details, but this opens up our state so we can see our families again, so that people who have to do work between the islands who have been vaccinated can travel. We think actually this will encourage more people to get vaccinated, but I want to be very clear. If you don't want to be vaccinated, you can still use the Safe Travels program and get a pre-test. We don't want to discriminate against anybody, but it will be an easier way to travel, frankly. The sooner the better. If we can, we'd like to pilot it out about a week before May 1st in a perfect world so we can debug it, but sooner rather than later, because now we have gotten to the point where we're over 900,000 people vaccinated. By May 1st, the date I want to launch this, we will be at about 1.1 or 1.2 million shots delivered. That's a ton of immunity already statewide. Another 4 weeks, our state is essentially getting to the safe space. So that's why if we start it for the neighbor islands on May 1st, have our act together, get that done a couple weeks or a month later, and then we're good to go.
Many airlines are pulling idle planes from storage as they prepare for a spike in summer travel. Pete Montine has a look at that.
The pressure is on at American Airlines Tulsa maintenance base. Here, crews are preparing planes to meet the new surge in air travel. Hundreds of commercial airliners sat idle on taxiways, ramps, even runways through much of the pandemic. Now, American says all of its planes will be flying again by the end of the month. No easy task.
In many ways, we touch the aircraft, actually have more maintenance requirements on the aircraft that has been in storage or is in storage than we do with the aircraft that's out actively flying.
Roger Steele's team of mechanics are spending 1,000 hours to revive just one plane here. Part of their work includes federally mandated inspections of the Boeing 737. It is the world's most popular airliner. American alone parked 300 of them because of the pandemic. The FAA said the plane sitting idle could cause a critical valve to fail, risking catastrophic dual-engine power loss in flight.
All of the things that could have been negatively impacted by the fact that it was parked have been identified, they've been addressed, and they've been resolved. And so I can assure you 110% that these aircraft are safe and they're ready to fly.
Planes have been stored exclusively outside for months on end, and crews came out here about every 10 days to check things like the engine, uncover them and fire them up. Also check the landing gear, the tires and the brakes, the crucial parts inside there. About 100 planes were stored out here at the peak of the pandemic, but now there are only a few left. The latest data shows airline travel closing in on a recovery. Industry groups say flights are now 75% full, up from 60% just last month. New demand means the industry is bouncing back sooner than expected. The newest jump in numbers means the Transportation Security Administration needs more help screening passengers. It is hiring 6,000 new officers to staff checkpoints, holding hiring events nationwide.
I think the big thing is for us, we want to be prepared for the summer. We're clearly taking a lot of efforts to make sure that happens.
United Airlines just said it will hire new pilots for the first time in more than a year, while thousands of existing pilots will be coming back from pandemic time off. A CNN review of aviation safety records from across the country uncovered flight crews reporting rusty skills and in-flight errors after returning to work. American Airlines says its pilots will be thoroughly rechecked in classrooms and simulators before coming back on the job.
There's a lot of pent-up travel demand, and we really want to be there and be ready to move our customers to wherever they want to go safely, efficiently, and make sure we're putting out a good product.
Pete Montine, CNN, Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Youth sports on Oahu can officially resume today. It's a long-awaited date for many parents and children. For more on exactly what's happening, here's City Parks Director Laura Thielen.
First of all, on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation, welcome back, everybody. We've missed you, and we are excited to see the kids coming out onto the fields this week. And we look forward to the adult teams returning next week when we open up for them. The main thing we want to make sure is that we can continue to play, and so that everybody is safe. We're asking that the guidelines that they follow under the permit conditions, the main thing is don't gather, no spectators. Drop your kids off at the fields, go take a walk with a friend. You can walk around the field and watch the game from a distance, but don't gather in the parking lot, don't gather on the sidelines. The coaches and the leagues all know the permits have conditions saying that there cannot be spectators. So please listen to the coaches. We want to make sure that the kids and later on the adults can continue to play and that we stay safe.
All right, and what a gorgeous day to start those activities, right? Let's take you outside. Look at that. beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But I hear from Mr. Hoggy himself that there is a chance for some places to see some severe weather today, albeit a small one. Let's toss it over to him for an update.
How's it on this Monday? We've got really nice weather out there for much of the state, although there is a disturbance looming around Maui and the Big Island, so there is a slight chance today for thunderstorms to fire up over Maui and the Big Island. We've got more settled weather for Kauai and Oahu today. And those trade winds will start building through the day. They'll be running at steady speeds for the next several days. That means a nice long run of beautiful weather. But today, there is a chance for some isolated thunderstorms to fire up over Maui and the Big Island. That's just a brief thing. And then look at that, fairly nice conditions for Maui, for Kauai and for Oahu. Now, the surf's going to be fun size, pretty much island-wide. A new little pulse is rolling into north and west shores. And south shores still got shoulder-high waves, and we're expecting more small reinforcements through the week for the town and country shores. So we're in for a nice long stretch of steady trade wind weather, and then those winds back off on Friday as a front moves in. We'll also see a few more showers Friday and Saturday, maybe even into Sunday. Keep it here on Hawaii News Now. We'll have all your severe weather updates.
Britain is in a week of national mourning to honor the life of Prince Philip. Ian Lee is in London with a look at exactly what's happening this week.
A spring snow fell at Windsor Castle, an unusual sight at a heartbreaking time.
It makes you feel heavy. Heavy, it's so sad.
Queen Elizabeth is in seclusion, describing the loss of Prince Philip as a huge void in her life. Fitting tributes echoed across the UK over the weekend as the nation honored a man who served his queen and country.
As you can imagine, my family and I miss my father enormously.
The funeral will be held on Saturday at St. George's Chapel here at Windsor Castle. The palace had intended to invite around 800 people, but because of COVID restrictions, just 30 will attend. Prince Harry will be among them. He flew back to the UK from California, but Meghan's pregnancy means she won't join him. Just weeks ago, the couple gave a bombshell interview to Oprah, alleging racism in the royal family.
I think Harry will be greeted as a very, very close family member by his granny, by his father, by his brother and by his cousins.
Royal watchers say such a big loss may bring healing.
I think togetherness, especially at the funeral of a great patriarch, I think is going to be the key thing.
The service will be broadcast live around the world, with Prince Charles and his sons William and Harry walking behind the coffin. Prince Philip's body will be brought to the chapel in a modified Land Rover, which he designed before his death. Ian Lee, CBS News, London.
And we're going to bring you coverage of all those services and events all week long here on This Is Now. Want to get to some good news now. Everyone loves classic toys, and today we're talking about Transformers, and it's going super high-tech, like it wasn't high-tech enough. So the classic action figure can be morphed, we all know this, into vehicles and other things. So Hasbro has created a new Optimus Prime that can reshape itself thanks to robotic updates. But this is not cheap in any way. The 19-inch item, which was around 5,000 components, has a hefty price tag of $700.
For
$700
for one?
For one Optimus Prime. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It also has 27 patented motors, 60 connected microchips, and so it really has a lot going on for it. Orders are expected to start shipping out in August. Do not even bother to get it for me for Christmas. That's too much.
Don't worry, John. Wasn't thinking of it. Maybe I'll get you this, though. Jenny's
yes.
Splendid Ice Creams has created a flavor in honor of Dolly Parton. Now, demand for the ice cream crashed the company's website when it was released last week. Some customers who were reportedly able to get the flavor tried to sell it on eBay for $1,000 per pint. Why do people do that? Jenny says it will give 48-hour notice via email and social media before the Dolly flavor is available. So what does it taste like, you ask? It's strawberry pretzel pie, has layers of salty pretzel streusel and a sweet and tangy cream cheese with a strawberry sauce.
That's it for This Is Now. We'll see you back here tomorrow, guys.
you.